Welcome to the Principal Podcast, where we talk about how the best professional services firms grow. Whether you're looking to scale your firm or learn from the stories of founders and leaders who've done it, you're in the right place. Join us as we interview the best leaders in professional services. Let's get on with the show. Team, welcome to the Principal Podcast. Happy to have you.
Thank you for having me.
It is my great pleasure. And Tim, tell us the story. What got you into coaching? What happened?
Yeah, it was probably about 40 years ago. I was an exercise physiology major, and somebody talked me into doing an internship of all places at IBM. I wasn't technical, had never turned on a computer. And now today I'm building out AI products. But back then I had a manager who hired me, probably shouldn't have hired me. I wasn't qualified for the job, so I had a lot of people help me, and gave me some really candid feedback one day and kind of framed it in such a way that it was of great benefit to me. And I said, what do you call that? And she said, coaching. And in that moment, I felt different. I used to avoid her office. I now felt 100% comfortable. I went home and told my wife, I said, man, that was the wild conversation. And I fell in love with coaching. And I switched my major, went into adult education, and started my first coaching firm when I was 23.
That is a strong story. Entrepreneur as of 23 years old. I
Yep.
only took the leap at 27, 28? 28. I'm not even sure. Shoot, I need to reflect on my story. What's the problem that you solve now, Tim? What is it that you help people achieve?
Yeah, we help leaders coach in the workplace. We don't do coaching per se. That's a byproduct of it. But the major problem we have in the workplace is people really struggle. They'll say they don't have time to coach. We've heard that for 30 years. I've owned this company for, I think, 32 years. And the real reason people don't coach is they don't know what to do and say. I've got someone who started last Friday. They want to get promoted. I have someone with body odor. I have someone who talks behind the president's back. How do you have those conversations? And it really requires really good conversational navigation. So the problem that we solve is the number one reason that people quit their jobs is their direct manager. Whether fair or unfair, it just is. So what we do is we have a coaching framework. We have a repetition, a progression that we have people go through that goes way beyond just training, where they're practicing conversations. We build coaching plans with some of our AI products to make it easy for them, so they have a roadmap to follow, not a script, but a roadmap. And the major problem that we see in the workplace is, like today, when somebody goes up to their boss and says, is AI going to replace me? You're on. There's no hiding. Well, could I get back to you? Oh, you're not telling me something. And so what happens is leaders are really put in tough spots, and leadership is tough today. The employees changed. And so the major problem we solve is helping leaders have conversations with their employees that lead to greater retention, performance, behavioral, positive change. That's really high level what we do and the problem we solve.
Who do you solve it for? So leaders, obviously. Do you have a specific niche, industry, targets, title? Who do you typically end up working with, Tim?
It's all over the board. I mean, some of our clients, like the Milwaukee Brewers baseball team, we work with their sales organization. We use and implemented a peer-to-peer coaching system. We have a ton of agricultural clients, which I love, but they're out in the field. I mean, when I say they're out in the field, they're out in cornfields. And then we have a lot of federal and local credit unions. We have a ton of credit unions, and we have some manufacturing. Inside the organization, we will typically start at an HR training level. The most successful projects we have are really working where C-level or executives are involved, because typically they'll push it down within the organization. Anytime somebody asks me what makes a successful coaching culture, I said, it always starts at the top, where they're vulnerable, they're willing participants, they're engaged in the process. It makes everything else easier. And actually, that's a pretty rare thing, especially when starting out a project. But typically, HR and training is where we start.
So that's interesting. Who do you talk to get to the right people that you help? I guess, to rephrase my question, I feel the people that you're helping are not necessarily the ones making the decision, nor even identifying the need for the leaders to be trained. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yeah, I think a lot of times we hear coaching. And so if I call you into my office and I give you feedback, I'm going to call it coaching. Really what I gave you was constructive feedback. I didn't inspire and motivate you. So we often tell people coaching's a different language. It is, handling somebody who has a negative attitude to somebody who's a high potential, but there aren't job promotions. How do you have that conversation? And so we typically will work where there's a pain level, turnover, HR departments doing a lot of PIP or performance improvement plans, organizations with C-level people saying, we're losing people, our culture's in disarray, we're having an erosion of talent, things like that. So the pain points will, depending on how the responsibilities are within the organization, will differ from company to company and even industry to industry. My two most successful projects is one currently an agricultural company where the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company is involved every step of the way, announces in front of the company what he's working on. They could have hired anybody. The other one was a company called Inpro in Wisconsin, where I live here in the States, where the C-level person at that point was Phil Ziegler. He would literally role play with me in front of the group. 24 years later, they are in, I think, their 32nd year of profitable growth of revenue. They've never had a decline. And they attribute some of that to the coaching, not Tim Hagen or Progress Coaching, but that's where we have our most success. But the penetration inside organizations really is the pain point, and depends on who's feeling it at the time.
And so I think I have a good understanding of like who is it that you help. Is it gonna be so the people bring you in? Are they the CHROs, the head of L&Ds? Is it some leader colleagues themselves who feel like, hey, there is a problem in John's team and we need to fix that? Who brings you in? Like, who do you need to get into the room with to get them to say our leaders need to be better coaches here, not just positive criticisms.
Yeah, the choices that you brought up, training L&D leaders, chief HR officers, it is rarely the manager themselves. It's usually the leader of the manager that will say, I've got, Tom's team, they're struggling. That will happen. It's rarely the person that needs the most help that will admit it. So a lot of times we'll get this comment all the time. Well, let's see if the program works with our people. And I always say, well, that's the wrong question. The question should be, are your people going to work the program? And as arrogant as this comes off, I know how to coach. I work with a coach. I work with an EQ coach. I work with a mentor. Having conversations with people, you and I don't go out and meet a couple guys for some sodas or beers and say, well, we got to plan our conversations and be conversational ready. We kind of just show up and have a social conversation. Leaders do the same thing with their employees. And so a lot of times when they give feedback, they will sometimes feel like it went really well, where the employee walks away and emotionally interprets, probably lacks emotional intelligence, and feels defensive, tells 6 other people, and undermines the brand of that leader. Sometimes the leader doesn't even know. So it's been estimated 85% of people significantly lack self-awareness. So the pain point is usually something that's not been experienced, but something that's been observed by somebody else.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, the literally $1 million question. What has worked for you, Tim, to get those leaders or head of HR, head of L&D to knock on the door and find you specifically, Tim? What has worked for you to attract the right people? I'm not talking about sales just yet. I'm really talking about brands, marketing, getting leads. What has worked for you in that regard?
Webinars and podcasting. And this is going to come off, I hope, the right way. I will go up against just about anybody inside a company. I will role play, I will practice, I will demonstrate. So there's a lot of people in the coaching, consulting, training industry that, I know people who do a lot of stuff in coaching topics like careers or mindset or what have you, but they write books about it. They go do public speaking. There's nothing wrong with that. They're subject matter experts, but they're not practitioners. So when I get in front of a room, and it's one of my favorite things to do, is I want to get in front of a room of 50 tough leaders and put me on the spot. And I think being a practitioner, I can demonstrate so people can have contextual reference. And so when I do a webinar or a podcast, I will literally role play out loud. I will literally demonstrate the phrase and then give contextual value to it. Webinars has probably been our bread and butter. That's probably been the thing that's brought us the most traffic in terms of people knocking on our doors.
So talk to me about that. How do you make a webinar work? How do you plan, advertise it, choose the topic? How do you then follow up with people, members, to make sure that they engage further? How do you make webinar work, Tim?
I will tell you, it'll get into a little bit of the psychology of selling.
Aha.
So I
Now
have
we're talking.
been, I have been debt free my whole career, and I let people know I have choices. So I also get to choose clients, which creates demand. The webinars I typically do is I will go through associations such as Training Magazine, Association of Talent Development. I have done some things with SHRM and HR Management Association where I'm the guest. So I'm also then positioned as a subject matter expert. I'm speaking out in New York in 2 weeks, and I'll be in front of probably about 100 leaders, and they will drill you with questions. I don't get conceptual. I will literally say in front of an audience, well, would you mind if I demonstrated that with you? You can play the role of employee. I want people to know this isn't theory. This is practice, because after 32 years, and I said it 32 years ago, the number one reason people say they don't coach is they don't have time. The real reasons is they don't know what to say and do. That is the same thing I say today. So when AI comes along, the leaders who said, I don't have time to coach, well, don't you have more time? You're using AI. So what's happening is, people really get nervous about having these conversations, whether it's giving constructive feedback, whether it's disappointing someone with the conversation, you didn't get the promotion. How do you have this conversation? Yeah. Most of the time, like salespeople, we tend to just kind of show up and throw up. So when we're coaching, we tend to call someone in the office and say, geez, you're not really getting upset. You're not hitting your numbers, or, people don't like working with you. And when you lead a conversation with those two type of introductions, that's a tough truck to back up. Yeah. And a lot of people don't think about what they say or how they say it. It's the number one reason why people quit. They never go into an exit interview and say, well, I hate the training department's curriculum, but I love my boss. They typically say, it's my boss. It's the direct relationship with your boss.
And so you make that demonstration live in a webinar. You show that. You actually don't talk about the product, although it's a service, so it's intangible, but you demonstrate it live with someone from the audience. Is that what you're saying?
That's one way of doing it. We actually do a webinar every year with Training Magazine where we have no curriculum, just live role plays. The content comes from the audience. So I bring another coach with me, and we are on, and there's no hiding. People think they bring up things that'll kind of stump us, and some of them are tough. I mean, in the last 2-3 years, I've had people say, how do I have a conversation with someone on the manufacturing line who has body odor? That's a tough conversation. That is really personal. Or how do I have the conversation with an ex-teammate of mine that I'm now the boss and they used to be my peer? Now there's a relationship change. So we have models and conversations that will demonstrate, yet we always are very careful to say these are frameworks. These aren't scripts. But remember, you control 50% of the conversation. I can have the best language, the best intention, but if the other person doesn't receive it well, it doesn't mean the conversation's over, which is the other number one probably inhibition in our field. Well, I talked to John about his attitude. He came in next week. He had a terrible attitude again. Well, he's been practicing that bad attitude for decades. One conversation's not going to suffice. You have to be invested in that attitude journey, because they're certainly not. What's the reasons why they want to improve their attitude? All of these things come into the way we train and certainly work with leaders in having these conversations.
I love it. The other thing that you mentioned was podcasting, which I don't get the opportunity to talk a lot about on this podcast because we are all about the guest, not about ourselves. Okay. But since you're going there, Tim, I'm going to piggyback on this. How do you make podcasting work to build a brand, build awareness, and attract customers? How have you made it work?
Yeah, I think authenticity. I'm not very well scripted. Like today, you were kind enough to give me some questions. I read them over. I don't have planned responses.
Good.
Our business is very, at times, authentic. At times it's extremely superficial. I think there's a lot of people who jump into this business because they were a VP at a company for 20 years and they got downsized. So now they've magically showed up and everyone's going to call them. That's a tough time to be in. So I was doing workplace coaching 30 years ago when people are like, you do what? Well, now everybody's doing coaching. And that has given me a leg up. And so I've always been an innovator. I've always been kind of first to the game, which can be good and bad. I think the podcasting, when people hear your voice, when they hear demonstration, even like video, audio can give you more contextual value because you can hear the flow. You're not being distracted like with my hands right now. Audio really has a powerful aspect as well. And so a lot of times I'll even have questions that I'll use from my clients. And I don't use a lot. And I struggle with this, to be honest with you. I don't want to turn my webinars and my podcasts into sales pitches. Like today, I'm not going to mention our pricing or anything like that. I think when you lead with subject matter expertise and education, I'd rather have people come to me because of the want. And in our business and any type of sales, I have no problem. We have some of the best customers. I'm proud to say after 33 years, we've never been fired. We've never had someone not pay us. But I have no problem telling someone who's ghosted me after 4 years when they call me, hey, I need a favor. My answer is no. And it's a tough field. It's a very crowded field right now. So for me, the podcasting is positioned and reinforced that authenticity.
Amen to that. I feel we've already touched on it, but I think it could be good to kind of double down and understand how you make this work, Tim. What happens then? So you get the right attention, you get the right people to knock on the door, you get the right authenticity and trust in the market. Mm-hmm. How do you transform all this into a conversation, a sales conversation, an SOW, a letter of engagement, we rock and roll? What does sales motion look like for you guys?
Yeah, typically people will reach out to us. And so I'll give you an example. Years and years ago, there was a company by the name of Monsanto. Now it's a German-owned company by the name of Bayer. And Monsanto called me and said, we've listened to your podcasts and your webinars for 2 years. We'd like to talk to you. That's a high degree of need. So my first conversation, I never mention our products or services. I don't even mention what I do. I go into what more people would call needs-based selling. I believe I'm having a coaching conversation. So coaching and sales really can kind of mirror each other because of the use of questions and things like that. And so I remember that conversation with a wonderful woman by the name of Sherry. And I said, would you mind if I demonstrated to you? She said, excuse me? Now I'm not a salesperson. I'm the subject matter expert. So we've struggled even hiring salespeople to sell our stuff because we have tools and stuff. But back then when it was projects, it was pretty much me. And so then when I do that first discovery, I'll set up a second call, say, look, based on what I've heard, here's where I think we can help you. If you're willing, let's set up a second call. But between now and then, I'm going to send you a video. And they're going to be like, what? I said, I'm not going to send you a template email with a promotion or a proposal. I send a video where I'm like, John, one of the things he talked about is turnover in the HR department. Mark, I'm talking to them and I'm demonstrating, which most salespeople don't. I've really heard what you've said. So by the time we get to that second meeting, I'll say, did you get the video? Yeah, it was great. Awesome. I'd like to talk about each one of those and how we can help you. Are you cool with that? And then we dive in on a second meeting. At that point, I'm very proud to say, I've never had to ask someone for their business. Ever. I never ask for their business. I'll say, I presented where I think we can help you. What do you think the next steps are? Could you put this into a proposal? I go through my budgetary questions. But I'll say, what's your time frame? I'll make sure of those things. Sometimes we all forget, but they will typically ask for the proposal. Mm-hmm. Some will say, well, what's the next step? I said it would be a proposal with pricing. If it's not the right time, just let me know because I have a lot of opportunities right and that I need to consider. I'm sending a message. I've got choices. And so and it's scarcity. And I will talk about, that opportunity that I have. Will I discount price? I always discount price, but I always get referrals in exchange. And if you don't give me the referrals, I bill you the difference. I've done that for 30 years and it's worked every time except for one.
Well, clearly it seems to be working all right.
It has been. We're
A
lucky.
99.9999% close rate on this approach.
Yeah, I wish.
How do you think about retention after that, Tim? So clearly, I mean, it feels like you're mission driven, much more focused on providing as much value as possible, in the sense of not just the theory, but actually demonstrating live with people, whether that's during a webinar, a podcast, or even in a, let's call it sales conversation, because this is sales cycle, but it's partnership building and value adding cycle. Once you cross the finish line in that partnering up cycle, how do you come in, you fix the problem, you make leaders better leaders and better coaches, and then what? How do you optimize for client retention?
Yeah. Our client retention is really, we're very lucky. Typically, our lowest retention is 3 to 5 years. I have clients of 15 plus years. And I struggle with that. I always give our clients choices. So, two of the clients I mentioned are one of them, they have a director of coaching. I wrote the job description. And the president goes, well, what do we do with you? I said, you have to fire me. So our philosophy is to indoctrinate it inside companies. Really, coaching should come from within, not from the outsider. I set it up, but every client is different. People change, markets change, employees change, the pandemic changed a lot of things. And so for us, I live by a motto, I'm relentlessly helpful and I'm always accessible. So just about a week ago, the CEO of that ag company called me at 6 o'clock in the morning. Said, you're up, right? I said, yeah. And he goes, can I call you? I've got something. And so next week, I'm doing 2 sessions. I'm on vacation next week for that same client. They said, well, let's reschedule. I said, no, we made a commitment. It got scheduled wrong. Don't worry about it. I'll do it. And so I think a lot of people in our business think because they show up and because of their experience, boy, are you lucky to have me in the room with you. And I think that's a huge mistake a lot of people make. So when we do our pricing, we're typically middle of the road, but I deliver more than what they expect. And I'll give you an example. Just the other day, a C-level suite asked me, well, we've got these 4 people who ran their DISC results and we're really struggling with communication in that area. And I said, well, some of the DISC results, I'll put it through our AI tool. I'll have coaching plans crafted for you. And they go, what are you talking about? I said, well, we built a DISC platform. They didn't know about it. They said, really? It was about 200 pages. Now, keep in mind, it took me less than 5 minutes, but it's all within our framework of how we teach coaching. And so when I delivered it, you would have thought I built them a mountain. And I'm transparent and say, look, it's the AI tool. We built this framework. You use our other tools. So for us, I always go back, and my wife has complained about this for years. You don't charge enough, but I've never been fired. I've never had someone not pay us. I've never had a conversation about a bill saying, boy, Tim, this seems like a pretty high bill. I've never, ever once had a client say, I'm questioning the value of what you're delivering. And that might come off pompous, but what people tend to do in our business is we tend to want to charge for everything. So when I have a big corporate contract, I do one-on-ones evenings. In the agricultural world, I think I'm at 47 one-on-ones before 6 a.m. on weekends, before they get out on the farms. I don't charge for it. Now, if I have a one-on-one client, I'll charge for those. But if a client's spending $100,000 to $200,000 with me, I'm not going to nickel and dime them with a $100 invoice. Now, when it gets back to them, what they're going to ultimately say is, wow, this guy really, really cares. Because I do. I love what I do. It's not hard what I do. I teach people how to develop their talent. I get paid really good money to help people help people. That's all I do. I'm not curing cancer. That's a lot more of a serious issue. And I think we tend to forget that egotistically people enter our zone. And I just had a conversation the other day. The guy goes, gosh, my phone's not ringing. I've been doing this for 25 years. I got downsized. And it's like, he's under the impression he magically showed up and everyone should hire the band. And it's tough. And it is tough. It's a tough place to enter right now. Thank goodness we're pretty well established.
That's an interesting point. I mean, like everything, there are pros and cons of entering the market now. Obviously, the cons is that you don't have all the experience and the authority that people like you, Tim, have built over the last decades, literally. On the other side, there is so much noise on the market right now, so many people shouting on the roofs that they are doing so many things. Everything kinds of feel fake, and it is, right? Anybody can claim
Yeah.
anything on the internet nowadays. So I think as a newcomer, if you come in and you actually deliver good work and talk about it properly via different means, like the webinar example, you can do some pretty good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, you've nailed the model. You've been in the space for a while now, Tim. I'm gonna throw a little bit of a curveball question at you now,
Good.
if you don't mind. What's your number one challenge? What's the one note that you're trying to crack that once you crack, you're gonna take the whole thing to the next level? What would that be for you?
Yeah, two. If I can do two. One,
Please.
sales. Yeah, sales continues to be a challenge. I mean, you get ghosted by people. I think the virtual world, getting a hold of people on their cell phones, that has changed the sales dynamic quite a bit. We're near the end of our careers versus the start of our careers. So credibility is great. Entering this field right now, I don't know if I would do it. Getting people, I tell people, look, if I put this together for you, when can I expect it? I ask this question all the time. When we work together, what can I expect from communication from you? No one ever answers it. They go, what do you mean? I go, when you reach out to me, I give you a 24-hour guarantee I will get back to you. What can I reasonably expect from you? It doesn't have to be 24 hours. And people say, well, why would you ask that? I said, because out of every 5 clients, 3 will ghost me. But since you're reaching out to me, you're asking me to do some things, you're giving me work to do, and I'm willing to do it, but I'm not going to chase you. And I think that's a fair exchange of information. For the most part, that's worked. But sales continues to be a challenge because I'm building and delivering so much stuff. And again, we're having a great year. We've had great years. That's probably our first one. The second one is we are building out a platform right now that we've never built before. It is an AI automation platform for coaching that takes the very framework that we teach. And if you fill out an assessment, we can build you an individual coaching plan, a self-coaching plan, a group coaching plan, a team plan, a peer-to-peer coaching plan. We can give you a list of questions. We can even identify behavioral responses based on anticipated behaviors demonstrated by the person being coached. And you get to choose your output. We even provide it from a mobile app. So if you're in a credit union and I'm observing you, I can literally give my notes into the agent and you'll have a coaching plan for that employee at your desk by the time you get there. So what we're trying to do is always center around our mission. How do we make coaching easier for leaders? So we're building out this platform while I'm delivering all this work to clients, and they all know about it and they're using some of the tools, but going to that market will be a major game changer for us because it'll go from project revenue to residual platform revenue, which we've never really done.
Interesting. So it's scaling the productized version of your offer.
Yes.
And the sales part, which I think back
Absolutely.
to what you were saying earlier. We live in a world where anybody can claim anything, so trust building takes a bit more time, and I think that's reasonable, but that's also challenging for a lot of B2B coaching and consulting firms. On the other side of the coin, what's some big opportunities that you're looking to forward to work on?
Yeah, I think what we uncovered, AI is going to disrupt our world. I personally believe, and studies are bearing that out right now, AI is going to accelerate the need for human-based coaching. I build AI products, but I think it will always come back to a leader having a conversation with his or her employee. And so what we try to do is build tools and solutions that if someone goes in and you can ask one of our agents, or you can go out and fill out a form saying, I'm coaching Joe. He's a high D in DISC. He wants to become a future leader. Currently, he has a negative attitude. He doesn't take feedback well. He uses a lot of yeah, but phrases as behavioral interrupters. We get all that information, and within about 30 seconds, you will have a well-comprehensive coaching plan. But the plan is in alignment with how we train leaders how to coach. So everything we do is in alignment. It's not fractionalized. So AI reads models and frameworks really well. So we use Claude and we use OpenAI, but we use a front-end automation tool. So our clients never touch our AI. So I get past regulatory issues. So we designed it that way. But what we're really trying to do is I equate it to this. If I told you to go do a keynote in front of 5,000 people, no outline, don't prepare, just wing it. People start laughing. I said, coaching's just a different stage. We're more comfortable winging it because it's just you and me or whoever we're coaching. But you can have dramatic impact in those people. If you have an outline and a framework that you can follow to develop talent and find out if you're progressing and where you're having success and where you need to continue to have success, would you be a willing participant? Oh yeah, it'd be great. That takes some time and practice. So a lot of our work is also done in cohorts, but they have access to all of our AI tools. So the self-education, just like we can do with Claude and Perplexity and other tools, it allows our leaders to get help in alignment with the way they've been educated to coach. And that sequence and that synchronization, it sounds, I'm sure other people are doing it. We have not found that with front-end assessment tools. So our assessments will map. So if you come to me and say, I've got someone with low emotional intelligence, I could take your assessment and craft a plan using that data as a framework to also have the conversations within our framework.
Tim Hagen, ladies and gentlemen. Tim, if people want to find out more about you, see what you do, where should they go?
LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn at Tim Hagen. And then our website is progresscoachingleader.com. The second website, it's live, but it's not functional yet, is the assessment platform I was just telling you is assess2coach.com, which is assess, the number 2, coach, all one word.com.
We will put all the links in the description. Tim Hagen on LinkedIn, you cannot miss him. 323,000 followers on LinkedIn. Probably knows a thing or two about what he's talking about. I can say one thing for sure, Tim, is that you've gained at least one new connection on LinkedIn out of this interview. Me.
Yes.
I just had it.
Awesome.
Tim, thank you so much for coming on the Principal Podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Principal Podcast. We hope you learned valuable strategies to grow your firm and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.